Good morning, everybody, and welcome on back. Been a couple days since I last got to connect with you, but apologize for that. I've been actually a little busy between work, and I just got just bought a new pellet smoker, so been tinkering around with that. But anyway, I am back for your listening pleasure. And yeah, man, we find ourselves in a little bit of a, well, depending upon which side you're on, a somber note. Take a little sip. A little bit of a somber note. I don't feel that way. I mean, it's you get all the media sources. No surprise, CNN and the like that are proclaiming that old Sleepy Joe is the president of the United States, which is interesting, right? Because you have Donald Trump getting blocked at every turn by social media and blacked out by legacy media for just calling into question certain aspects of the election that certainly require questioning. But Joe Biden's able to come on and give basically what amounts to a victory speech. But you know what? Be happy for it because I don't think a lot of people would have. I'll just say this: Fox News stands to lose a lot of viewership when this is all said and done because I don't know if they've been, you could say, infiltrated. Really, what I think happened was, at the end of the day, whether you're left or right, you're still media, and they probably came at him on that angle, team media, and Trump is none of our friends, so we're all better off without him. Just my speculation, but I would imagine Fox stands to lose a little bit of viewership after this, and probably a situation that would have never come to light were it not for someone as polarizing as Donald Trump. But I don't personally. I'm not counting him out. He's still going the legal route, which to me, everything's kind of on schedule. I would have liked to have seen just a nice clean win, but unfortunately, the game that's being played now is not clean. So, therefore, it is not. I don't think it's logical to expect a clean win. However, they're certainly trying to pressure him to go ahead and throw the towel in before the court proceedings get started. And you kind of see that by all these media outlets running with the narrative that Joe Biden is the president. But you notice they are still covering their ass because even CNN, that they have to put, and in their case, it's usually in small font, projected winner, because he's not actually the winner. But they're trying to ingrain that thought in our minds. So, number one, hoping Donald Trump will submit to the social pressure to just accept it and move on. And then number two, for the eventuality, which I believe that when it goes to the courts and he ends up winning, they can say Trump stole the election, when in actuality it was them who tried to steal the election. But people are being gaslit right now, man. And it's only going to serve to continue the trend that we've seen, right? But what's interesting is you see all these media companies now, and actually I saw a commercial for, who was it? Oreo. I think it was an Oreo commercial where they're basically calling for everybody to come together. It's funny, right? Isn't that funny that when they think their candidate wins, now it's time to come together. Now it's time for us to be one America. But we had 4 years of you're deplorable. We've had 4 years of you all are racist, you all are bigots, you all are xenophobes, you all are homophobes. Like we had 4 years of that. But when they win, it's time for everybody to come together. We're one nation. Well, when they think they win. I'm sorry, let me correct that. When they think they win, because I don't think they won. Now the Donald is down to his last. He's down to his last stand. This is like I about cracked myself up yesterday thinking about. I don't know how many of you out there have played Street Fighter 2, but when you get in there and you get your ass whooped. And then you got that countdown with your the guy you were using. He's all battered and bloody. He's got that little grain smudge on his head. He's trickling blood. That's the Don right now, and it's counting down. It's counting down. But nothing used to fire me up more when I played that game, and this is going to sound so dumb, but when I played that game, and I knew I was going to keep going, and I'm sitting there looking at Ken's bloody face, and he's just kind of sitting there looking into the screen. The guy's counting down, 9, 8, 7. So I would always wait till it got down to 1 for whatever reason, and then I'd hit the button, and then you get that glimmer in his eye, and he's, sure you can. Yeah, and you're ready to go. It fires you up. That's what the Don's doing right now, except he doesn't say Shoryuken. I would imagine if the Don was in there and he's sitting there bleeding and his hair is a little messed up. Then you hit that button when it gets to 1 and he says China. And that shit cracked me up for about a good 15 minutes. I'm not going to lie to you. But anyway, it's just funny, man. Yeah, there was an Oreo commercial where you had, and it was very tongue-in-cheek, right? They won't just come out and say it. They have to try to be clever about it. They use stuffed animals. And there was some cat. I couldn't figure out the symbolism of the cat. I almost said symbology. I'm watching too much Boondock Saints. The symbology. Now, the symbolism of that cat. Couldn't figure that out. But you had 2 stuffed animals. One was a donkey and one was an elephant. And they were antagonistic towards each other. And then they helped the cat get the Oreo. And it's time to work together. Some little horseshit message of reconciliation now that they think they've won. And we'll see how fast that goes away in the event that the Donald is victorious in the courts, which I believe he will be. But, man, I didn't really come to talk to you about that. Maybe that'll be maybe we talk about that tomorrow and why I'm confident in what will happen in the courts. Even though I have grown less and less, I have less and less faith in the court system. However, I think this is just so blatant, so open, so cut and dry that it's obvious, right? And you've already had a couple of justices on the court. And obviously when I say the court, I mean the U.S. Supreme Court. And you've already had a couple of justices kind of point out the fuckery, if you will, in Donald's favor. So I think he'll be fine there. And then they'll just use that to say he stole the election. And everything will continue as it has for the past 3 years. Probably a little bit worse because these people are actually being gaslit to believe that they won fair and square. Anyway, I want to talk more about Joe Biden. And, you can say a lot about how we got to the point where we are, but I believe there's one group of people in particular who are responsible, who should be held to account for the reason why we're staring down the barrel of Joe Biden. And that group of people, ladies and gentlemen, that group of people are millennials. Yeah, I'm throwing myself under the bus. Talking about my generation, right? Although I don't know if I'm a millennial. I think I might be. Anyway, talking about my generation, man. And really what I'm talking about is the shift in standards of the American society. And you can see it in all aspects, and I'll kind of get into that in a little bit. But why do I think we are to blame for Joe Biden? Well, number one, it bears remembering that Joe Biden did try to run for president once before. I believe it was 1987. And he was basically laughed out of his presidential run. Pretty much the same thing that happened to Kamala Harris this time around when she went to be president. It happened to Joe Biden. Because, he got caught in his lies. And, back then, because there was a high standard, just them catching him in the lie about where he went to school and how he graduated was enough for all of the adults in society to say, no, you just lied. So it's funny when you think about that and you look at this man His family was caught up in scandals we literally have proof of, and he stands to be elected president. So you can see just the fall in standards just from that. But really, I'm talking about, you know, a couple of things that millennials are struggling with. Number one is maturity. The just outright refusal of my generation to hang on a second. I'm sorry. It's fucking hot in here. Much better. Much better. Put the fucking fan on. Really talking about the outright refusal of people in my generation to grow up and assume the mantle of being an adult, right? Even has a little goofy phrase. We call it adulting, right? And that kind of embodies the childish nature, right? That we have to call maturing and becoming, we have to call it adulting. And then, obviously the joke is that it's a play on bad grammar, further illustrating the refusal to mature. So, and the fact that you have these, people who are raising families, but they're basically trying to be BFF with their kids, right? So, and that kind of went on before us, but we've taken it to a whole new level, to where our children are allowed to throw tantrums, and we need to have adult conversations with them, and our children are allowed to choose their gender too, depending upon where you live. So there's an immaturity factor among millennials that makes it easy for someone like Joe Biden to become president, someone who is clearly should not be president. And for that matter, to be fair, you could also argue someone like Donald Trump. But immaturity. And right underneath of that immaturity, I would say that plays a factor that could be considered to be a part of it. It would be the fact that we're called the microwave generation. We're very impatient. We're the people of instant gratification, right? We can't delay gratification. Well, why does that play a factor? Well, because if you're impatient, and think about how people consume their news now. Most people just read headlines. Most people just, they'll just look at a Twitter headline, a tweet, not actually look at the article, not actually read the article. And even now, I was actually on Twitter doing some, just scouring and doing some light research on some things. And there was a video that was played about something. And one of the comments was a guy saying, "Tell me what the video is about. I ain't got time to sit and watch it." And it was like a 2-minute video. But that's where we are, right? We went from reading's too much to now watching is too much. It's the microwave generation. And again, well, how does that help someone like Joe Biden? Well, then you're more apt to move past things like, Chaz, the Chop, all these riots. You're more likely to move past that stuff. You're more likely to move past it because, that was a long time ago. That happened a long time ago. If you even remember it to begin with, even if you've even paid attention to it to begin with, right? Because if it wasn't in a tweet, if it wasn't a headline of an article, and please believe these media outlets, these legacy media outlets, they understand that. They understand that people don't like to read beyond the headlines. In fact, how do you think this is literally how we got the Donald Trump only paid $700 for his taxes false argument? Because it was literally a headline in the New York Times. And because the New York Times was the one who started it. Excuse me. But in that same article, if you were to read down to about, I think it was about the midway point, they actually admit that the headline was wrong because they said he actually paid millions and told him to hold on to it. But they know that most people will stop at the headline. Or how about the good people on both sides argument, where literally in the same sentence, he disavowed white supremacy for, I don't know what time that was at that point in his presidential career. It was early, so I'm going to say it was somewhere in the 20s. But the fact that, people just tune in for the clip and move on. And it's because we're impatient. It's because that's why they call us the microwave generation. We want it now. And probably the biggest aspect of the immaturity is the fact that people of my generation, our generation, depending upon who you are listening, we have a proclivity for choosing emotionalism over rationalism. We have a proclivity for choosing a narrative over facts. And obviously that's counterintuitive to running a mature society, to maintaining a good, sound, mature judgment. The fact that, I mean, we're the generation of triggered, right? We're the generation of, woke. We're the generation of safe spaces. We're the generation of, like it's really sad. It's really sad. We're the generation of rage rooms. We're the generation of shit. I mean, what else? What else? What other words, behaviors? What else have we created to basically justify emotional outbursts? We are with that. That's us. We're the generation of that. We're the generation of crying men. And look, nothing wrong with a man crying per se, but there should be some level of control with that. We're the generation of the overly emotional men. And, again, how does that play into someone like Joe Biden? Well, that plagues right into someone, not just Joe Biden, that's the Democrat playbook, getting in your emotions. I feel this, I feel that. I've said it many times. They deal with you in feelings, not in facts. They always try to get you to react, not to think. Right? If I were, and by react, not think, let me break that down. Okay. Let's say an incident happens where I don't know, I pull up to my house and there's, I don't know, a man digging in my mailbox, my neighbor, right? Well, if I wanted you to think about that, like, why would he do that? I would say, it's such and such a date on Sunday, November, whatever. I pulled up to my house and there was a man who was sticking his hand in my mailbox. I was not sure. I know that I recognized the man. He is my neighbor. I then approached him and that was that. Okay. I'm giving you literally all of the facts of what happened. That's because I want you to formulate your own opinion about what happened. But if I want you to react, I will say something similar to this. A white man invaded a black man's mailbox. You're not really thinking there. You're reacting. Because the first thing you'll think is this racially motivated? Why? Because I mentioned race. Well, that's what they do. If you notice, they always put in things that trigger emotions, emotional trigger words, if you will. In just about everything they cover, it's racialized, it's genderized, it's some kind of political undertone. It's never just cold hard facts. And at the point where I'm injecting my opinion into a story, into a fact, if I'm holding a ball in my hand and you say, tell me about that ball, I say, well, it's roughly 4 inches in diameter. It's orange. It has a design on this one face and it costs $5. All of these things are facts. I'm not necessarily trying to influence you. I'm just informing you about the ball that I'm holding. But if you ask me about that same ball and I say, well, I don't really like it. Seems overpriced. They could have done a better job with the designs. Well, I'm clearly trying to make you dislike this. And that's the game. That's the game of choosing a narrative over facts. That's the game of, when you extrapolate that, choosing emotionalism over rationalism. And again, because we are the people who like to live in our feelings, which ties into the immaturity, you'll get someone like Joe Biden. You'll get someone who will just say Donald Trump's a racist. He will say it for literally 4 years. And you have people now who I've seen on Instagram and so celebrating this and saying, we finally got rid of a racist and this and that. But Joe Biden was literally saying the things that Joe Biden said just on this campaign run. If Donald Trump said it, he'd be in prison. They'd hold him off to Guantanamo Bay. But that's what happens when you don't deal in the real world, when you don't deal with actual facts, when you stay in your feelings. You open the door for someone like Joe Biden. And it's not just this. I mentioned earlier at the beginning that it's just it represents all of this, the immaturity and all of what I'm talking about. It represents the shifting of standards in American society. Because, we, for all intents and purposes, the 40s, 30s, it's our show now. 50s, 60s, they're established, whatever. 70s, 80s, they don't give a shit anymore. 90s, give less of a shit. Talking about ages now. 20s, they're still trying to figure it out. They're loud and stupid. They're in the loud and stupid phase. That's 20s on down to, 13. And then 12 and under, you're just irrelevant. But so we are the shapers right now. We're the people shaping the direction that we're going. It's our turn up to bat. And it's no coincidence that you can see this shift in standards in just about every aspect of American society. Let's just go, again, we talked about from a personal standpoint and politically, how we end up with, two candidates that are not the most desirable. I think both sides would agree that they could do better. However, we end up with them. But let's not stop there. You ever turn on the TV? Look at all the commercials. It's, I'm still old enough to remember back in the day when they showed commercials, they went out of their way to show good-looking people. Guys who had some kind of physical stature to them, or at least, were handsome. They were serious. It was like they were taking the job of making a commercial seriously. Well, look at the commercials now. You would be pressed to find someone like that. People like that that's the paucity of events. That's the exception, not the rule. Every commercial, there's always some kind of goofy, weird-looking person. And that's kind of celebrated, right? We are the people who celebrate average and mediocre and not trying. So, look at the people cast on sitcoms now. Very plain, very just average, and usually the protagonist is the most apathetic person. Usually that's a very weird thing. The protagonist usually embodies some kind of characteristic that was traditionally seen as bad. Like they're usually lazy, they're apathetic, they're socially awkward, whatever it is. But we celebrate that now, which is weird. Look at comedy. Compare comedy from the 90s, even the 80s if you want to go there, to now. All the comedy now is intentionally awkward, right? It's funny to be awkward. Or it's also funny to be not funny when you're trying to not be funny on purpose. When you say shit is corny for the sake of irony, I guess. It's like this whole ass backwards, like hipster ethos of rejecting the moment and not trying and taking your victory in losing. And again, it's in the comedy. Comedy's awkward. It's always about being a loser or engaging in some kind of socially deviant behavior or just being surly and unpleasant. Or, if you're a female comedian, which I've yet to find one that's actually funny, it's about being vulgar, being basically the antithesis of what a lady is. Talk about your vagina, talk about being a whore, and everybody should laugh because if they don't, they're sexist. Well, we can move past comedy. Look at the music industry. Let's compare music. We can compare pop music. We can compare rock music. We can compare rock music now to the 90s. Compare the kinds of bands that pass for mainstream and hard hitting now and in the 90s. Compare rap music. That is where it really falls apart. It's either completely lazy, again, there's that word, where it's just they say the same shit over and over again. I got a cup of Jameson. I got a cup of Jameson. Slurp, slurp. I got a cup of Jameson. Like it's the same stupid shit over. It's like it's trance music. It's like they're hypnotizing you with dumb shit and making you dumber in the process. Or it's derivative, right? It's either one of those two things. It's either completely lazy, where they just didn't give a shit, or they just completely bit off an old song and tweaked one or two things. Very, very rarely do you get something original. Even in those instances where you get something original, very rarely on top of that, it's extremely rare that you get something that's original that's actually worth a damn. So, and I mean, you can let's keep going in the entertainment industry. Shit, let's go to movies. Why are damn near all of the movies are remakes of something that's already, some kind of product that's already come out? Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe. What's the one that's coming out now with, there's one with Kevin Hart and Will Smith. They're doing something. God damn it. My boy was telling me about that the other day. I can't think of the name of the movie. I can't think of the name of the movie. But anyway, they're remaking two white guys. You could just it's like every movie is just another spin of something that's already been done, or it's some kind of derivation of that, or some kind of it's like, why can't you think of something original? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, somebody came up with that. Transformers, somebody came up with that. Hell, even these Marvel movies. You could say, okay, well, there was never an Iron Man movie before. Yes, but Iron Man has already existed, right? There was a comic book, or if you're really into it, a graphic novel. Which, whenever people say graphic novel, I just, come on. It's a fucking comic book. Shut up. So, just own it. Own your horse shit. That's all I ask. Just own it. Don't try to dress it up. But, okay, so Iron Man did exist in comic form. You obviously extrapolated from that. It's not a new idea. I mean, even our athletes are fucking shitty. LeBron James, out-of-worldly talent, should go down as the best basketball player of all time. Unquestionably. There shouldn't even be a debate. There should not be anyone who could even posit a logical second option or third option, but it won't be that way. And it's mainly because of his own it really has nothing to do with his game. That's the fucked up part about it. It really has nothing to do with his game. It has everything to do with his personality, his attitude, the shit he does off the court. But that's what we get. Football, we get Odell Beckhams. We get Johnny Manziel's. And again, it just represents a shifting in standards to where our standards are falling. And again, I blame millennials for that. I mean, we're up to bat. It's us. And the way we take this country, man, that's what it's going to be for at least the next decade and a half. That's what it's going to be. So, you can blame a lot of people for Joe Biden for sure. I am not trying to unseat the burden from other parties. There are certainly a lot of people who shoulder some of the blame for Joe Biden, but in my opinion, the biggest group of people who should shoulder the blame for Joe Biden excuse me, are millennials, because we represent the shift in American standards, the degradation of the standards of previous generations. And for the most part, we revel in that. We revel in not giving a shit. Right? I mean, look at shit. Have you been on a dating app recently? If those are not the most unpleasant women in the, like, and most of these, they're not even trying. They put these big goofy bull ring through their nose. They got a bunch of goofy tattoos, a stank face on. It's like, okay, well, but man, and I'll have to go back into that. That'll have to be its own thing. I'll probably do it at some point this week. I'll do it at some point this week. Now that I thought about that, because that is something I really wanted to get on. Because how no one has sued eHarmony yet, I don't know. Every time I see those commercials on TV, I'm like, those bitches do not look like that. They do not look like that. Pull the app up. Pull the commercial up. Look at them side by side. I defy you to find me 3 women that look comparable to the women they show in those commercials. I defy you. So, anyway, that doesn't have shit to do with this. I'm going to wrap this up before I start ranting. But, yeah, man. Everybody out there who's Team Trump, just stand by. Stand back and stand by. You know, there's still an out here. And according, for people like me, everything's moving right according to schedule. I fully expected Joe Biden to be able to hoodwink this thing. I fully expected the media to jump behind him, because why wouldn't they be? They've been behind him since Donald Trump lifted his hand up. Actually, since Donald Trump became the nominee for president. So everything's proceeding according to plan, and we'll see what happens in the courts. And, after that, but here's the thing, even after that, will it suck? Absolutely. Has it bothered me, the notion of him becoming president? Absolutely. Because he's already said that the first thing he's going to do is sign a bunch of legislation as soon as he gets there. Surprise, surprise, the Democrat wants to make more rules. But we'll get past it. That's what we do. As the adults in the room, that's what we do. You won't see us breaking down and screaming. You won't see us trending Jejune hashtags like "not my president." You won't. We don't, because we get on with our shit. We get on with our lives. So it'll suck, but we'll get through it. If that is indeed the outcome, I fully expect Donald Trump to retain his title as heavyweight champion of the world, aka the U.S. president. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And that will conclude today's sermon class. No, but I am going to get up out of here because this fan is really not doing the job. And I'm starting to sweat a little bit. So until the next time, ladies and gentlemen, you know what it is. It is a peace.